From ABC News Radio, KMET 1490 in Southern California. This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgensen, coming to you from not so sunny Southern California today, but beaming in bright and excited is the infamous, the wonderful, the charismatic Amanda Holmes. Welcome out to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait to dive in.
So I met Amanda recently at Funnel Hacking Live and was really impressed with really overall your energy, but your reputation preceded you because obviously I know of The Ultimate Sales Machine, the amazing, impactful book written by your father, Chet Holmes. And so you are now the pilot of that ship as the CEO of Chet Holmes International. One of the first questions I usually ask is around entrepreneurship. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yes.
So much thought into that answer. Do you consider yourself more of like a business person than an entrepreneur, or?
I guess I thought business owner and entrepreneur synonymous because I really had to reimagine what the new edition of my father's business would be and what my version of it would be. So,
yeah. I think that there are entrepreneurs who are founders and creators. And then there are other entrepreneurs who can take a business and take it to the next level, both of which are, in my opinion, an entrepreneur. I think for me, an entrepreneur is not a business owner who is just operating a business. That doesn't really fit that. So I think they're very close to synonyms, but I see them a little bit different. And it is one who is able to take something and elevate it to the next level through applying whatever solutions and opportunities they see. So as you've taken over, actually, let's back up a little bit. What is Chet Holmes International? Tell us about this amazing book that I've already given you my testimonial that every business owner should read. But give me the background a bit.
Yes. So my father got his big break working for billionaire Charlie Munger, co-chairman of Berkshire Hathaway with Warren Buffett. And he was able to double the sales of 9 different divisions for Charlie, all within 12 to 15 months. And several of them doubled multiple years consecutively. So he realized that he had this gift for growing sales. And he realized that he had a repeatable process for growing sales, which 92% of companies do not have a sales process. So no wonder it's been such a raving success. He then went on to work with 60 of the Fortune 500 as clients, but he realized that he wasn't going to be able to impact a greater amount of business owners unless he built a company that had coaches and consultants. And he wrote a book that everyone could read. So he put it into the Ultimate Sales Machine, and it is now voted in the top 10 most recommended marketing and sales books of all time. Congratulations, Dad. I'm so grateful. Yes. So he actually was diagnosed with leukemia 10 years ago, and he passed in 2012. So a raging success, right? 250,000 businesses that we've assisted around the world. And here we are, a fully operational company. And now the heart is just absolutely missing, right? The entrepreneur that it's like as if all the moving parts would still operate, but then it was missing this heart. And that's when I inherited it at 24 as a singer-songwriter.
Man, that's a hard part to take over from. First of all, it truly is a great mark of how impactful something was for if it continues once the person stops, taking their own foot off the pedal, right? And it clearly has, because I didn't come to know the book until after your father had passed. And it was one of those things where I was super sad because usually, I read the book, I'm like, oh, one of the things I need to do is connect with people. And then I realized I couldn't. And that was super sad. But it's amazing to see the impact that the book continues to have, and not just the book, but the process and everything that are there. So you, as a singer-songwriter, were the natural person to take over this new thing. But were you able to step in and say, okay, because there are systems and processes and these things exist, I'm able to come in and be the new heart?
At first, no. I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm like, this looks terrible. Oh my God, please, someone save me from this crazy mess. Some of my friends call me the reluctant CEO. I was not interested in it at all. I had panic attacks all day, every day. When I'd get on a call, thank God we were virtual, I would listen in and I'd be crying, sobbing on mute. And then they'd be like, Amanda, are you there? Yeah. it was not a heroic entrance at all by any means. Yeah. And then over the years, I started listening and asking questions and trying to understand what was going on. And the more I asked questions, the more the team would say, oh, you're asking the right questions, keep asking them. And I moved into getting enough confidence to step in as CEO after I'd hired several different CEOs and presidents and CMOs and CFOs and CTOs and different C-suites to try and fill that void. Yep. And so it took about 2 years for me to step in. But I've been CEO for 7 years now, and it's lovely. I mean, 60% of second generation businesses fail. So I definitely have all of our fans and our clients to thank for that.
They were able to keep the momentum and hang on while you were getting your Kleenex and figuring out you're finding your cape, right? So was there a moment that you feel was as a catalyst for you that allowed you to say, you know what, I'm ready to step into this role? Was there something of significance?
Oh man, quite a bit leading up into it. I studied under an Indian saint. So she was a big part. Looking for mentors, I think, is a huge positive thing that you can do in your life. Somebody that can see past your own fears and see what your potential could potentially be. So under Divine Bliss International, I did a lot with them. I think one big thing that also happened was I climbed Kilimanjaro. Yeah. Largest freestanding mountain in the world. And it seemed, it's 19,400 and some odd feet in the air. And to walk it over a week seems like the most daunting task. And I was very nauseated. I had really bad altitude sickness. But by the end of it, I realized that it just took one step at a time.
So did you do it pole, little by little, one step at a time?
Oh, did you climb Kilimanjaro?
I haven't yet, but I lived in Africa for a while. So that's got to be a metaphor, right? For you climbing the mountain of being CEO. So what was it, in that week-long ascent, was your mind just going back to like, how can you ascend? How can you grow?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a leadership retreat actually with a bunch of CEOs. Cool. So it was, the whole thing was talking with other business owners, and I'm standing there going, guys, I really don't think I could be CEO. This is crazy. What am I thinking? But I think two analogies, one of it takes one step at a time, and then also recognizing that it wasn't about me doing everything, because the last day I literally was so nauseated from the moment that I stepped on that mountain. Nobody really thought that I was going to summit. It was so with altitude sickness, you get less air. So smokers have an easier time getting to the height of a mountain because they've been training. Yes. Whereas me, I'm a singer-songwriter. I've been trained to use my vocal cords. I've been trained in breathing techniques. I'm a certified yoga instructor, right? Like breath is everything to me. So to restrict my breathing, I mean, by the end of the last day, I had one guy on one arm, one guy on the other. My eyes were rolling to the back of my head. I was just a total mess. And I realized that the only way that I could get through that was by the help of the people around me. So recognizing that, yes, maybe I'm CEO, but there's people around that can assist.
I think that's a powerful leadership lesson, is being the leader doesn't mean being solo, doesn't mean being by yourself. And in fact, it doesn't mean doing it all yourself. It might mean you got to take the responsibility, right? You got to take the accountability, but it doesn't mean that you do it alone. That's a really powerful lesson. Let's get into something that is the heart of what you teach and the message that your dad brought. The fastest way to double sales. I think you have a fancier title for that, but tell us a little bit about one of my absolute favorite business tips of all times.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. The fastest, least expensive way to double sales. My father originally coined it as the Dream 100. So that's how he did it with Charlie Munger. I'll give the historical piece first. Yeah. So he was given a list of 2,200 different prospects and just said, okay, reach out to these 2,200 people. Well, he did some research and he realized that 95% of the market was purchased by only 167. So instead of going after all of them, he led an intensive effort just to those 167 on a repeatable basis, where every Tuesday he's sending out a mailer, every Thursday he's following up via phone call, every Friday he's sending a fax. So that was at that time. Today, the mediums have changed and adjusted, but it's still the same of using that pig-headed discipline and determination to go after those big, wonderful clients that could completely change your world. So 4 months in, he had not gotten one client. Now, majority of businesses will give up after 4 months of going after a single client, right? But he had that PhD. That's an important part of it. In the 6th month, he brought in Xerox into their industry, which is the largest contract that the industry had ever seen. He closed 28 more of those dream clients. That's how he doubled sales in the 6th month, doubled sales at the year, and doubled sales multiple years consecutively, because he took that one skill set and he continued to refine it over and over and over again. So we have 12 core competencies on how to double sales. This is just that one. So how can you lead an intensive effort just to those bigger, better buyers? And how do you get to be the bright spot in their day where they go from, I've never heard of you before, to, oh yeah, maybe I've heard of them, to, oh yes, I'm familiar with them, to, yes, I work with them and I refer them all my business.
I am such a huge fan of this concept because it just seems smart. It's just more effective. It's more intelligent, right? It's more, it maths out, except for the part of PhD. Because so many people have a hard time of continuing to invest when there's not even a sign or a symbol of return. Like, how do I know this is going to work? And part of it is just, well, you have to keep working. And the other part is, well, there's history. You can look at other people's examples. But how do you know if you're doing it right?
I'll give you some market data on that. So
there we go.
The average appointment takes 8 different pieces of contact to reach that person. And the average salesperson stops. So 95% of salespeople stop after the 4th contact, but it takes double that to actually get that appointment. So knowing those numbers, right, you find more clever ways to continue to follow up. I just interviewed one of our raving fans out of India. They're one of the largest wealth management groups in India, Motilal Oswal. They've served 2 million Indians. It's absurd. They're huge. They went after a client for 2 years straight. And just once a quarter, they did it once a quarter, which I found fascinating. Once a quarter, they'd send them what we call lumpy mail. I just got one actually today. Someone sent me a lumpy mail, which I just love. They took my logo and put it on cards, which cool. I thought was very brilliant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So they sent out this lumpy mail to them once a quarter. And 2 years later, when the top of mind happened where they said, oh, I need that product or service, for them it was a service, that was the first person they called because they created top of mind awareness. So if you know the function of what you're doing is creating top of mind awareness, so that as soon as they do get into that buying now category, you're the first person they think of. That is the point.
Yeah, I have tried to explain it to other people, and I don't do it as eloquently as you, but I use the example, if it's like having targeted Super Bowl ads. Like, Super Bowl ads are great because all they do is it's all top of mind awareness. They very rarely have a strong call to action, but the Super Bowl only happens once a year and only certain people watch it. And most people don't have the budget for it. But if your dream prospects or your dream dream clients or dream connectors, right, you can be top of mind for those people 3 times a week or once a quarter or whatever the timing is. What are some not to do's in pursuing the Dream 100?
Always talking about yourself. That's a great example. So if we go to chapter 4 of the Ultimate Sales Machine, which you can get for free online, ultimatesalesmachine.com. If we look to the buyer's pyramid, if you reach out to 100 people, on average, only 3% of them are in the buying now category. Another 7% are open to it. But the remainder of that 30% are not thinking about you. 30% think that they're not interested. And the last 30% are definitely not interested. So of all those people you're reaching out to, 90% of them do not care about you, your product or service. So you really have to think, what can I do to add value to this dream prospect? What can I generate them business? Can I generate them leads? Can I give them a testimonial? Can I be a bright spot in their day? I did this with Dave Woodward when I first met him. I followed up, and every single day on Instagram, when he would post something, I would reply, I would comment. every single day, it was as if me and Dave Woodward were in dialogue, even though we weren't. And he really didn't say much on the other end, but he acknowledged that I said something every single day. 3 months later, him and Russell came back to me and said, hey, we'd like to buy 650 of these Ultimate Sales Machine books and give them to our 2 Comma Club members. Hence why when I met you at Funnel Hacking Live, everyone knew of my company and the book because of what that wonderful follow-up that happened.
Yeah, Russell has been a huge proponent and banner waver for the Ultimate Sales Machine for some time. I think that he is where I first heard of the book. It was on one of his podcasts from I think 4 years ago, probably. And so it's neat to see people taking, the frameworks and the things that your father created and also putting their own spin onto it. I think one of the things that Russell did that was unique was he made it about how to find like affiliate marketers or things like that instead of closing contracts, but making more about partnerships than exact business, which again, the principles I think are the same.
Yeah, that does tie into, so people then thought that the Dream 100 meant you had to have 100 people. We have dream buyer campaigns that are just one person. You could have one person on your dream buyer campaign. You could have 8 people. You could have 13 people. It's not about the number. It's about what you can actually commit to and follow up with that PhD.
It's interesting when we name things, especially if they have a number in them, how people will hold to that. Because like Tim Ferriss, when he was on the show and we talked about the 4-hour work week, it was like, well, people thought if I was working more than 4 hours that I was being a hypocrite, but 4-hour work week was just the winning title that won in a split test. It was more about the concept of lifestyle design, the concept of being deliberate in what you want to build, not specifically only working 4 hours. And I think that's similar to Dream 100. It's a great concept, but it could be, the first list your dad had was 167, right? Yep. And it could be 1, it could be 5, it could be whatever number, but it's the concept of being laser focused and instead of, spray and pray, right?
Yeah. And also we teach it as the fastest way to double your sales. Some people have thought of it as it's now the fastest way to get influencers to know you, which is like, you totally lose the point of what that whole thing is to generate sales, right? So people will send a mailer in the mail and then they won't follow up to actually get the appointment. It's like, what's the point in sending the mailer if you're not getting the appointment, right?
Really good about following step 1. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got the attention, but now what? The whole point is the PhD to follow up, to close them into business, right?
Well, you said, I think, I don't remember the exact number, 92% of businesses don't have a sales process. So the problem is if they don't have a sales process and all they do is implement Dream 100, they are just making noise because they don't have a process to create all the next steps. What are some of the next steps once you are getting the attention of dream prospects?
Yes. So then once you bring them into, let's say you're getting an appointment or you get them to, let's say getting an appointment, that's easier for me. So once you get that appointment, how do you add value to them? How do you set yourself up as an expert and not just, hey, I want to talk to you about my product, right? So that really ties into our stadium pitch concept of going back to that buyer's pyramid. What can you do to educate them about something that's keeping them up at night? What are the 5 biggest reasons they would fail in their industry this year, right? Can you put together that as a presentation? Can you teach them something of value? It doesn't necessarily have to be about your product to start because you're gaining their trust, their rapport. They would like you, trust you, respect you, right? So then it leads into that easier version of getting them to work with you.
And I think what probably turns a lot of people off is that this is hard work. There's a lot of steps. It takes patience. It takes perseverance. But clearly, the market data shows, hey, the people that stop at 4 touches, they're missing a big piece of the pie, right? Yes.
Well, this also ties back to our main premise of mastery isn't about doing 4,000 different things. It's about doing 12 things 4,000 times, right? So we can come up with a million different ways to generate more business. But if you're wondering why you're not getting more traction, it's because it's just about that refinement, right? Repetition is the mother of all skills. So this is just one of those skill sets that you will continue to work on repetitively over and over and over again until you become masterful at it.
What is coming for Chet Holmes International?
I'm, I'm finishing the new edition. It's done. It's in revisions with the publisher, with Penguin. So
And the title is going to be Ultimator Sales Machine, the more ultimate sales machine, the ultimate, what?
It'll be the same title. Although my father wanted it to be titled The Pig-Headed Executive Wins Every Time.
I like it. It reminds me of like the toilet paper entrepreneur, like the term that kind of like catches the attention.
Well, the
alternate title.
The publisher wouldn't allow it. And they said, nobody will buy that book. So the publisher won with The Ultimate Sales Machine. My father was rather upset, but it ended up working out in the end, I guess.
It's hard to argue it was effective because it did pretty well. How many copies have been sold so far?
Oh, man.
We even have current data.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, there's something on the title of the book, or there's something on the cover of the book you've had. It's several, it was in the millions.
Hit number one.
Yeah.
And for years, right? It's amazing. I didn't do marketing for it for like 5 years, and it still was in the top 10 most recommended, which is just speaks to how brilliant of a book it is, really.
Yeah, I have probably recommended it on this show, in podcasts I've been guests of, and other things at least a dozen times. And so I think you see that happen where like other people will recommend it, and then there's a surge, and I'm sure you guys probably see the data on that, which is pretty fascinating. You can track back who has more impact. But so what's changing in the new edition? What should people be looking forward to?
Oh, man. Well, I cover some of it. We just came out with a new quiz on what's the single biggest thing holding you back from doubling the size of your company in the next 12 months. That's on howtodoublesales.com. So you get a little bit of that sneak peek there. But so when my father originally created this, he created content marketing. I mean, 30, 40, 50 years ago, he was doing content marketing for Charlie Munger back when nobody did content marketing. He called it education-based marketing. So as a predecessor, and this concept of a stadium pitch, like how can you teach something of value instead of just talking about your product, was like unheard of. Today, now everyone educates, but the problem is that 50% of the content online is deemed useless compared to prospects, and 40% of it actually decreases the likelihood of somebody buying, because we have gotten so lazy about our content. It's actually hindering us. So what I put in the new edition is breaking down our whole core story education-based marketing approach to how we take content and turn it into sales, instead of just putting content out there willy-nilly and it actually hurting you.
Willy-nilly is my least favorite kind of getting content out there. It's fascinating because in one way we're saying you've got to get the reps, we've got to do the work, but then sometimes we start just doing the work for work's sake and we're not doing it strategically. Yes. And so that's the wrong kind of reps. And we say it's so obvious in sports disciplines or in other kind of disciplines where like quality in equals quality out. But for some reason in content marketing, there's this challenge of trying to keep up that people are willing to sacrifice. And I'm all for, there's certain times where you need to be raw and you just need to post, but it should still be strategic and have a purpose.
Absolutely. If you're just checking the boxes, my gosh.
And I think people are starting to feel that a lot more in transparency. So I'm guessing the new version will also talk less about fax machines and maybe have some new technology involved and infused into it. But the principles are going to be the same, right? Exactly. And the general message is the same.
That's funny that you say that. Wait, just really quick. So my father, when he wrote the book, websites was 2 words. So I had to change all mentions of websites and make it 1 word. And I actually put it into the foreword. So I had a wonderful book coach, Julie Eason, helped me like get to the finish line of this. I'd been working on it for the last 2.5 years. And in the foreword, I kept writing it to the readers. And she's like, why don't you write the foreword to your father? Why don't it be a letter to your dad? And my initial response was, no way. Oh my God, I can't do that. But in the end, it turned out something really, really special.
So we all have to start the book with tears. I'm super excited.
There might be some tears. Yeah. I think it would be pretty cool that if a sales book started with a little bit of tears,
I think that's okay.
Something we need. Yeah. But one of the things I said to my dad was, guess what, Dad? websites became one word. Like, who would have thought?
It is fascinating to see as things evolve and things change. We're coming up here to the end. I have two more important questions.
Okay.
You can decide if they're important. They're important to me. The first one is, The Ultimate Sales Machine is the ultimate book on doubling sales and one of the top books that people need to read in business. What's the next top book people need to read? What's Amanda's, if you can't recommend The Ultimate Sales Machine, what book do you recommend for business owners?
Oh my gosh. Well, I go more into Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. So it was the only book that Steve Jobs had on his iPhone, actually, and he gave it away at his funeral. And it's a pretty powerful book about just understanding the purpose to life. And that would
fascinating. I think if you're not a complete human, you can't be a complete business person. So,
amen, brother.
Yeah. And then lastly, I think business is about creating the lifestyle that you want. It's about being deliberate, being intentional. What's one item on Amanda's personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Well, with the launch of the book, part of my why for why I did it is because I lost my father at 55. And for all of his brilliance and all of his ways of working smarter, there was still so much pressure that it took him so early. So part of my addition to my father's legacy and what is really important to me is having that balance so that you can create your ultimate sales machine without becoming one. And so I work with a nonprofit called Divine Bliss International, and we're working to create a university of self-realization. So that's part of my why. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I would love to see business owners grow, but not have to sacrifice your health or your family in the meantime. So that's part of what I'm working on.
That's a pretty powerful why. I don't think I could have said that idea of building your ultimate sales machine without coming one and any better. That's really amazing. To everybody who's listening, please go check out Amanda. You can find her on Instagram at Amandita Holmes, and you can find her at howtodoublesales.com as well as ultimatesalesmachine.com. And please support her everywhere. When that next book comes out, I know you're all going to grab 10 copies at least. And to all my biz ninjas, wherever you are listening, it's your turn to go out and do something.
Thank you for listening to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with Tyler Jorgensen. Please make sure to subscribe so you're first to hear new interviews and episodes. If you found this podcast to be valuable, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to visit our online dojo at bizninja.com to claim your reward for listening to the show.